moment talk about anxiety. Anxiety is actually a very interesting thing in that it actually is something that occurs, right, without our control, right? Sometimes you're just sitting down on the chair, you feel anxious, or you're just walking and you feel anxious. There are so many different types of anxiety, as of course we have, shown in the videos. And also there are many different reasons, what would trigger anxiety and so forth. But I just want to give kind of a general overview of anxiety. Basically, I want you to think of anxiety as something that is there to work with you, to help you to improve your life, your quality of life, your survival. So anxiety is not necessarily an antithesis or an enemy of your life, but it is there to help you, to steer you in a certain direction that can actually maximize your survival. So for example, I'm walking alone, and maybe I'm walking towards a lake, for example, and let's assume that I've never been to the lake, so I'm just walking towards the lake, and let's assume that I'm the only one, there's nobody else around the lake. I'm just walking. People do walk to the lake, there's nothing unusual about it. But let's say that as I get closer to the lake, I begin to feel anxious, right? Maybe not strong, not intense, but I'm beginning to have that sense of anxiety, right? And as I continue to walk towards the lake, I begin to feel a little bit more edgy, that anxiety is kind of becoming a little bit more intense, and it becoming something that is begin to affect even my knees. My knees are kind of becoming a little bit weak. It's becoming a little bit harder to walk. Now the question would be, why am I feeling this way? Well, basically what is happening is that there's a certain brain structure whose task is to ensure the survival of the organism by actually monitoring any stimulus, any input into that comes to be processed by the brain. So the input may come via what you see, so that's visual input or visual stimulus, or it may come through what you hear, so that's an acoustic stimulus or input, right? Or maybe what you feel on the skin, that's a sensory input. You're feeling through the temperature, cold or whatever, or something touching you, that sort of stuff. So all these signals that are coming into the brain, they get processed, at some point. But this particular brain structure is responsible for, and is actually interested in processing every input that comes into the brain, because it's looking for any potential threat to the organism. Okay, so that's what happens. So going back to our example now of walking towards the lake. So what's happening is we walk towards the lake, right? There's all kinds of input coming into the brain. One of the input is that we are walking towards the lake and we're actually getting closer to the lake, right? And then what that brain structure will do, it will actually send something, because that brain structure is actually wired with your front brain, because all these analyzing decisions and so are done in the front brain. So this brain structure, which is actually on the side of your brain, actually is wired to the front brain, and it will send signals and say, man, we are walking towards the lake, and we think this thing represents a potential threat to the survival of this organism. And then what the front brain will do, it will then go through the database and do a search to find out as to whether we have been to this particular lake before. And if we have been to this particular lake before, or even if we have not been to this particular lake before, it will then say, okay, how dangerous is this lake? Is there any danger associated with it, right? And that sort of stuff. And it will also find out, okay, lake involves water. There's a possibility, high probability that we might get into the water. Do we know how to swim, right? And even if we know how to swim, I mean, does this lake have currents? You know, all kinds of stuff will be analyzed by the front brain. So in the meanwhile, of course, the brain structure that monitors survival is actually taking note of whether we know how to swim or we don't know how to swim. So at some point, the front brain will say that actually we've never been to this lake, and we do not have a knowledge of this lake. And yes, lakes are a potential threat to the survival of the organism. This organism does not know how to swim, so that does raise the threat. Now at that point, of course, what happens then is that the brain structure becomes a little bit overactive, because it has now been determined that the organism does not know how to swim. And so really what will actually create the feelings of anxiety now is that, you know, a certain brain structure will be triggered, and then it will begin to increase some levels of what we call epinephrine, norepinephrine. Okay, this is the kind of stress-related type of chemical that, you know, will flow into the bloodstream, and the purpose of it is to kind of discourage us from doing things that are a threat to our survival, but also at the same time is to make us ready to defend ourselves or to actually run away from a situation. So it is there to prime, you know, our muscles and so forth, because if our muscles are not ready, you know, we can actually get hurt in the process of trying to run or trying to defend ourselves. So we need to be primed. So that's actually the purpose of that, you know, the epinephrine that is being released slowly into the bloodstream. So basically that's what happens. So I'm just pointing this out because just to say that, you know, anxiety is not there really as something that is to incapacitate us, but is there as a way of trying to remind us or to steer us in a certain direction. However, it does happen though that if this brain structure becomes overactive, right, because in some people it is actually highly sensitized, then what will happen in that case is that it will always be triggered very easily by events which maybe under normal people those events wouldn't trigger anxiety, but among that but in the mind of that person that would actually trigger anxiety. So it is in that case then that, you know, some interventions become necessary in order to deal with it. So anyways, we know we can talk a little bit more about these issues another time, but I just wanted to point out that anxiety is not necessarily something that is working against you, but it's something that's supposed to work with you. Right? It's just up to the type of communication that you can establish with it, so that it can actually be something of benefit to you as opposed to being something that actually slows